It's time for MacBreak Weekly. Alex Lindsay's here, Andy Ihnatko's here, and filling in for Renee Ritchie for the next 10 or so years, the inimitable Jason Snell joins the MacBreak Weekly panel. Lots to talk about. macOS's lockdown mode. In fact, we've now got public betas for all the OSs. We'll talk about whether it's time for you to try it. There's a lot more to come as we welcome Jason Snell to the MacBreak Weekly family. Next.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is MacBreak Weekly, episode 826, recorded Tuesday, July 12th, 2022. Snelled it! This episode of MacBreak Weekly is brought to you by Collide. Collide is an endpoint security solution built around honest security. You can meet your security goals without compromising your values. Visit collide.com/MacBreak to learn more and activate a 14-day free trial today. No credit card required. And by Our Crowd. Our Crowd helps accredited investors invest early in pre-IPO companies alongside professional venture capitalists. Join the fastest growing venture capital investment community at ourcrowd.com/MacBreak. And by ExpressVPN. When your phone carrier tracks you, that's a gross invasion of privacy. You can keep letting them cash in on you, or visit expressvpn.com/MacBreak to get the same VPN I use. Take back your online privacy today and use my link to get 3 extra months free. It's time for MacBreak Weekly, the show where we cover the latest Apple news. And there's some news actually on our part. But first, let me introduce Mr. Alex Lindsay of officehours.global.
Hello, hello.
Hello, hello, hello.
Yeah.
You are, of course, at 090.media. If people, we watched this morning at 7:30 a.m. the NASA feed of the first 5 images from the James Webb Telescope, which were mind-boggling. But during the feed, we're going, they should have called Alex. They should have called Alex. What a mess. It's hard.
Yeah, it's doing live events, especially live virtual events, is really difficult.
Hard.
You know, and that's why we get up every day and talk about it. 7 days a week is because it's hard to do and it takes a lot of thinking.
So NASA 090.media, just a hint for next time.
They have my number.
They didn't have people's microphones weren't on. At one point, the presenter says, somebody else is talking, and you can hear loud and clear saying, I'm hearing other people's voices in my IFB. What's going on? It's like, yes, so are we.
The hardest part, in fairness, I don't know what happened in there. I didn't see it because I was on office hours. But the hardest part with all of those things is clients, and that could be and all the hosts, don't think that they should have to show up early to make sure that this all works. It is like the number one problem.
Rehearsal,
baby. You set everything down. Now, what we do to make that different is that we put actors or other people in the crew in there and run the whole thing, pretty almost verbatim before they come in to make sure that because it's really hard if they don't show. If
Executives
they don't
want to show. I understand.
So you have to kind of fill that in.
Presenters should know better, but hey. With the pictures were great. The web worked really well. Andy Ihnatko's also here. Saw you were at the Boston Public Library this week. Nice shot on your Insta.
Yes, now that's terrible because there was a good change and a bad change that the studio made during the pandemic. Since the pandemic, the good change was that now I can actually do Zoom remotes, so I could use my nice microphone and the nice broadband, the nice studio. So if I don't want to come in, but I want to come in, but it brings in the bad thing, which is now we're streaming on YouTube, which means that I have just like I had to shave before the show. Damn it! I have to look nice for NPR. Okay.
So they're doing video now, which is good. We'll get that link before the end of the show.
They've always had cameras so that if they want to do they have a PBS channel as well. So if they want to do TV, but now it's by the way, we're live streaming. So okay. So I guess so I guess that now people can actually see that what I'm saying. Yeah, I think that it was in 2009 when the EU actually passed this new, you can actually see me I think it was in 2009 when the EU, that can't be right.
So now I have a strategically placed computer in front of me that's tilted at exactly the angle that no one can see what I'm doing. And I sound smart.
There you go.
Andy, great to have you. Now, we have a problem, Houston. There's this empty seat on the panel because Renee Ritchie, who is, by the way, in the Discord, if you want to wish him luck, Club Twit members, has passed on. No, he's not. He's moved to a higher plane. No, wait a minute, that's not right.
We're joking. He's only dead to us.
He is. We still don't know, and he says, "What did he say? The release hasn't gone out yet, but as soon as release goes out, we'll tell you where he is now." Of course, he's still at youtube.com/Renee Ritchie. But we thought, well, who could we get with Renee's stature in the Apple community, his inside knowledge of what's going on, funny, talented, gray-haired. Who could we get? And I'm so thrilled to welcome Jason Snell as a regular.
Hello.
I've been trying to get you in this show for years, decades. Hello, Jason. Welcome.
It's good to be here. It's an honor to succeed Renee. I mean, 10 years on a podcast is a pretty big thing to do, and I know Renee going way back. We all love Renee. It was an honor to be asked to do this.
You have a lot of other things that you're doing, so I'm honored that you could make some time to be here a couple hours a week. So thank you. I really appreciate it.
Sure. And today I just happened to be in the neighborhood. I actually live not that far away from the
15
Twit
minutes,
Studios.
20?
So that was about half an hour.
Half an hour away. Wow.
Yeah,
However
quite a commute. I work out of my garage, so this was.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, this is what a commute is like.
It's so nice to see you.
It's great to be here.
You know, Jason's been on our shows since practically the beginning of Twit. You have sixcolors.com. In fact, I think when you started with us on Twit, you were still at Macworld.
Oh yeah, for sure. In fact, I remember distinctly being on the first iteration of MacBreak.
Yeah. The video version.
The video version.
Yeah, with Alex.
In the old.
Well, and even
days.
before that, of course, a regular on Call for Help on Tech TV. That's
right.
where we met.
That's
so
right.
It means I've known you for 20 years.
Wow, that is because I was an editor at Macworld, and we were down. That was a long time ago because we were down on Howard Street back then before we even moved to Second Street. So that was a long time ago. Yeah,
That's
and
nice.
Of course, we shared Jerry Day, who I went to kindergarten with, was one of your producers.
That's right.
Back in the day.
Jerry now runs the film production for some small town in
up in Tuolumne County, I think. Yeah,
for Tuolumne County.
Yeah.
Kind of a slow job, but when movies need to be made, somebody has to be there to make them.
Tuolumne County is where we both grew up. Is a great way. I didn't know we were going to be talking about this, but it doubles for the Old West a lot. So a lot of film production up there.
Okay.
If you need to pretend that you're in the Old West. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad to have a Jerry Day expert on the panel.
Yeah, it's
Thank
good.
you.
I know that needed to be just a shout out to Jerry. He's out there somewhere.
It is so seriously. Replacing Renee is tough because he has such great connections and such knowledge. But we couldn't do any better. I don't think ever than getting Jason Snell. And of course, you were good friends with Andy and Alex as well.
I mean, I often usually take my afternoon walk like right after the show, and so I just found out about Renee leaving right after the show. So I'm taking my hour-long walk, and unfortunately, as usual, your thoughts are inside your head, which is a bad thing. And I'm thinking, oh, geez, what a surprise! That was too bad. And I'm thinking about how much I was going to miss, for having my nice 2-hour conversation with my really good friend like Renee, because it leaves me energized, just like with all of you guys. I'm energized. It's like it's very, very pleasant. Like, God, geez, I'm going to really miss that. Then when I find out that Jason is going to be filling that slot, I mean, Jason and I have been friends for so long. He's probably sick of me saying it, but so long that he's the person who told me how to boldface things in HTML. That's how long we've known each other. And
bracket B, bracket.
I was my first job out of grad school was at Mac User Magazine, where Andy was a columnist, and so I've known Andy since the mid '90s. Basically, it's a long time now. Long time.
He's survived. Our friendship has survived him being my editor for a very long time. So that is being like that's like the sort of friendships you make in foxholes.
So the camera crew has come in to take the official still shot. So if you would put your right hand inside your. Oh, you're wearing a T-shirt.
Yeah. I didn't know about the dress code.
Just teasing. We did see some amazing images from the James Webb Telescope. The first 5. Many more will come. Rod Pyle joined me this morning at 7:30 a.m. To take a look at these 5. Remember President, what's his name? Oh, yeah, Biden yesterday revealed the first one, but there are 5 more. This is actually an interesting one because the James Webb is not an optical telescope. It has sensors in the infrared and other spectra. And so this is actually a fascinating shot of the spectra. And this is the image on the left that President Biden revealed yesterday. And that's going to be very, very important as you look at the spectrum, because it tells you something about the composition of the star, but also of the exoplanets that they're planning to look at. In fact, one of these exoplanets, a planet at 2,000 degrees centigrade, closer than Mercury to its star.
Yeah, it's
very,
a hot
very
Jupiter, basically. They call
has
it.
water.
Yeah, there's water vapor in the
water.
atmosphere. Yeah.
But it's really hot.
But it's hot water.
Yeah.
It's really hot.
It's hot water.
Really hot water.
But the incredible thing is, like, when you see you see this really fake looking picture that looks like when you go to like the Museum of Science and the gift shop, you can get one of those sports shirts that has just like lots of little pictures of galaxies in it. Like that's how fake this thing looks. And then when you think about all of that is just within the field of view of the sky that is equivalent of a grain of rice held up at arm's level. It's like, oh my God,
Here's
we are
another
going to learn so much.
Interesting piece. This is the President Biden's image from yesterday. These galaxies look smeared. That's because of the lensing of the gravitational field
of the foreground galaxy cluster is creating a lens, and you can see it. You can really see that circular distortion that is all from Einstein basically predicting that, the curving of light.
It also magnifies these galaxies, so we can actually get a better image of them. Thank you to the star in front. This is one of the most dramatic images. Is this the Hubble version of the image? This is the Webb version of the image.
They have a lot of before and afters, which says, okay, that's why they needed this.
Yeah,
this is why.
That's actually, I don't know if this is a Hubble image or just another. I think it's another color of the. Huh? It is the Hubble. Okay, it's not the Hubble. Okay,
JWST. Yeah.
This is an amazing image of, and I apologize for those of you listening, but they have posted this, of course, on the NASA website, and there is a James Webb account on Flickr, which is where I'm getting these high-res images from, and highly recommend it. They're not quite 4K, but they're close to 4K. Certainly suitable for your desktop wallpaper. John, tell me the name of this galaxy. This is a nebula.
Is that the Carina Nebula?
Yeah, Carina Nebula.
Which is the famous Carina Nebula and the Eagle Nebula. This is the famous Hubble shots where you're looking at a stellar nursery, essentially, where you've got these clouds of gas and there are stars inside them. And then with the infrared, you can actually look inside through the dust and see the little baby stars that are sort of like emerging from here.
Isn't that amazing?
And the other thing that was mind-blowing about this image, you see these images and you think, oh, that's nice. It's like a little cloud. But my understanding is the height of that cloud, so-called cloud, it's about 7 light years.
Sure.
So these are
these are stars.
Scales.
These little dots. That's the size of the sun. So it gives you some idea.
So that's the distance. Essentially twice the distance between Earth and the nearest star outside our sun, and that's how big this cloud is.
And above the cloud are the newest baby stars. In fact, they're pushing the cloud away, which is fascinating.
They go out on the main sequence and they start up their solar wind and they blow the gas away.
Gases away. This is another one of the famous quintile, or actually there are five galaxies here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You may remember from It's a Wonderful Life. This is where angels get their wings. Oh. I'm not kidding. You think I'm kidding? I'm not kidding.
No. Good. That's solid cultural reference. We get you.
Amazing shots. This is also one of my favorites here of another nebula. Just dramatic.
Right, and that's a planetary nebula, so that's a star that has ended its life, or in this case, a binary. It turns out they actually, in the infrared, they resolved the two stars at the center, which is amazing. One of the things you'll notice in all these shots when you look at them is there are, like in that shot off to the left, there's an almost edge-on galaxy in the sort of upper left quadrant on the edge, and that is a case where JWST is so powerful and can see so far in the infrared that you have this thing that, the Hubble did the deep field where they took the shot of empty space and found all those galaxies. The new reality with the JWST is that every shot is going to have these little background galaxies because it's so finely attuned. So even if they're looking nearby, there are also going to be hundreds of galaxies in the background.
Amazing.
Everywhere you look.
And by the way, here's a little thing you probably don't know about the James Webb Space Telescope, but when you click the magnifying glass on the image, show this, John, because you might be interested. It says, "Whoa there, Tiger, this photo is already at maximum size." So that's just how good. That's how good that telescope.
Yeah.
Mary Jane Watson is running the public relations office.
Anyway, really, really exciting day. We will put it up on our Twit news feed if you didn't see it. If you can watch our feed, which is probably maybe a little less stuttery than the NASA feed.
I just want to ask Alex one question. Like, what camera would you use that would have been better than the James Webb Telescope for this event?
For the event or for the telescope?
No, for the telescope. I mean, I'm sure you've got some ideas.
Well, I think that there's a new area out that I think could be really good. We could put it out there and make it work. Yeah, I think that it would have a big zoom lens. And we'd see what we'd get. But it's really
kind of
amazing to just
wow.
see. The incredible resolution, and I think that, we know that for the next decade, we're going to be able to see a lot more.
50 gigabytes, a little more than 50 gigabytes a day, a maximum bandwidth of 28 megabits. So there is a lot of data coming back from that telescope every single day.
Yeah. This is why I'm way more excited about spacecraft that we're sending out just to be observatories than I really am about permanent installations on the moon or on Mars, because this just gives us so much hard science, so much more bang for the buck when we do not have to sustain human life, all the expense, all the size, all the kinds of costs that comes with human space travel. It's important for us to learn how to live in space, because that's such basic science that we don't have much of a grip on. But the idea that, the Hubble was in such low orbit around the Earth that you could actually send people out to service it. This is so far out that part of the engineering was, look, we are never, ever going to be able to send anything out to fix anything on this thing. This has to be absolutely right. And oh my goodness, those first images, the thoughts that it inspires, the sense of perspective, and that it inspires just in normal people like you and me, as opposed to the scientists who are actually getting value from this. My goodness, what value for money.
All right, so and I'm glad to see that Jason Snell is a space nerd. So we have one more element we can add to the show.
Getting Jason on the show was a good thing already, I think. I think we already demonstrated.
Wait a minute, do we have a visitor from another planet? Is that Henry or Mizzy? Henry is in the studio. My favorite alien. Why don't you bring him in just real quickly so we can see. Henry has those very typical bulgy eyes of all aliens, and there he is. Yeah, look at Micah's little chihuahua. Hello, Henry. I've been trying to get Micah to bring the dogs in forever. This is the first time.
Yeah, this is. Oh wait, let me scoot in then.
Hello, little boy.
Yeah, this is the first time.
What planet is he from again?
It's a
Planet Love.
Yes, exactly.
The Love Planet. Thank you, Micah. All right. It feels like a family today. It's great. It's really fun to have everybody in here. I spy with my little eye. Jason's running an iPad Pro. Is that the 11 or the 12?
That's the 12.
12.9. And I see on it something a little different. You've got Windows. Are you running the public beta?
I am
of
actually
iPad
running the
OS.
public beta of iPad OS, which just came out.
Today's the day.
Yesterday, I think.
Yesterday, yep.
Would you? You now have public betas of Ventura, iPad OS 16, iOS 16. I think there might even be a watch and TV public beta.
HomePod too.
The question's going to be, should people run it or not? I wasn't going to do the dev beta. How stable is that?
It's okay. It's a beta. There are bugs. Yeah. So if you want to get the new stuff, you gotta try it out. It's usable. You need to have a reason, right? You need to really have a reason to.
Besides, I really want it.
Well, with iPads and iPhones, it's hard to roll back. So you're really on a Mac, you can install it on another partition, and you're okay with it. But on an iPad, you're kind of committing. And I'd say if you've got an M1 iPad. Stage Manager might be worth it. It's still a work in progress.
I'm watching these windows. You go back and forth between these windows. It's like a computer.
Yeah, it's almost like it's a computer. Isn't that weird? Isn't it? But
it's a computer you can touch.
But it's still a work in progress. Like literally with the latest beta, they added Command W to close a window, which they did not have before. It's like you get the sense with the iPad stuff that they built this stage manager thing, and on the Mac it works really well because the Mac has this whole history of window management. Right. And then you see it on the iPad and you're like, oh, the iPad has literally no windowing infrastructure at all. And they're building it on the fly this summer, apparently. So Command W came in.
Seems like that would be one of the first things you
would think. But here we are.
Yeah. And it no big crashes, no blue screens of death.
I mean, I've had a crash while I was sitting here, but it generally crashes back to the lock screen, and then you open it back up.
Springboard crash.
It's been been okay so far. But again, if it's your phone that you need every day to live your life, and you want to see those new lock screens, I mean, balance those two things because it's going to be annoying for a few months.
Tell the truth, though. You put it on your phone too, didn't you?
It's not on my regular phone. It's in my pocket.
Brave man. Not brave man.
Nope. Coward.
How about you, Andy? Any public betas in your life?
I have it on. I don't have it on my M1 MacBook Pro, iPad Pro. I have it on my older one. And
so you don't get Stage Manager in that, then, do you?
Yeah, unfortunately, no. Unfortunately, I only have one M1 iPad, and it is as Jason says, I mean, it's a production thing. Yeah. If I'm kind of hosed if I don't have it. Same thing. I do have the iOS 16 on my iPhone because my main phone is an Android, so I can if I can't call an Uber, if I can't do banking on my iPhone, that's not a big deal. But yeah, I can't. This is I've been obviously watching as many other videos of people now that it's not developer mode and people are allowed to really talk about it and quote review it unquote. I'm seeing not just the demos of Stage Manager, but you get to see people actually trying to make sense of it as it's in front of them. And oh my goodness, I cannot wait for this. This is such a it really is feeling like between the iPhone and the iPad, iOS 16 is going to be the most transformative set of updates we've had in quite a while.
Alex, will you use any of these betas?
I probably won't. To be honest, I'm just too busy to. I mean, I think I'll just wait for a little while, maybe until January to test it.
January.
I jumped into Monterey.
Fall.
I jumped in Monterey really fast. Like I was like, oh, this is going to be great, and the fall was pretty rough.
Yeah,
for me.
Burnt.
And so I feel like I was like, there's just a lot of odd things that happened, and so I think I'm just gonna. I'm going to stick to it. Just let all of you take the front line. I'm going to sit back and have some coffee. Say, just tell me how it goes. I mean, right now I can't even get my AirPods my AirPods, they wouldn't connect, so I reset them, and now they just constantly tell me that somebody else's AirPods are near my phone.
Oh, I hate that when that happens.
I can't get it to so I'm like, if I can't get that to work, I think I'm going to stay out.
Jason has a long review at sixcolors.com of Ventura.
Yeah, the public beta for MacOSventura.
You took no time to do that. You must have had it a little bit earlier.
I mean, there are other reviews on the web of this public beta that are 5 times as long, but I focused on the 2 features that I think are the most interesting. So Stage Manager and Continuity Camera, which I think are I'd say the shared photo library stuff is also interesting. It's not just a Mac feature, and it also just came out last week in the last developer beta. So I need to spend more time with it, but like Continuity Camera, you're scrolling through my image samples that I took in the worst possible lighting conditions, and the bottom line is, it turns out the iPhone camera, it's really good.
Yeah.
And also when you turn on Center Stage in Continuity Camera, it goes to that iPhone's ultra wide, and you get exactly what you get on Center Stage on any device, which is a cropped ultra wide camera that isn't that great, and it's noisy and it doesn't handle light that well.
So
but
turn it off.
But it auto pans. But if you turn it off, it uses the main camera on the iPhone.
Better.
Which is glorious. It's such a good camera. So that's
also Center Stage, and I know Alex has mentioned this many times. It centers your head in the middle of the screen.
It doesn't
which
do
is
it
the
right.
wrong place.
There's no professional camera operator who would look at Center Stage behavior and think that they modeled proper behavior.
And because I'm so used to my head being the upper third. Every time I use Center Stage, I'm like trying to get up on top of the.
I mean,
it
fairness,
pans.
if you're
you
talking
stand
about,
up and it pans up, and you can never get there.
In fairness, it looks really good if you're putting it on a giant screen. So at 30 feet wide and X amount of feet high, it actually looks pretty good in that frame, but not small screens.
So this morning when we did, I was at home when we did, because it was 7:30 freaking in the morning when we did the NASA thing. And I used Camo with my iPhone, which has really been worth.
Fantastic.
But it's not free. It's you have
to
pay for it.
Yeah.
It's like $40 a year or something. And but it does work really well, and I love it. And I've also used Ecamm, which does the same thing. How does is it going to? Are they Sherlocking camo?
It's the typical story where there are things that Apple's never going to implement as features. I mean, I hope they do, and I took them to task, and I will again about this. That like there are no webcam settings to speak of in macOS, and there really should be. Camo lets you do things like crop the image. And choose which part of the image you want. So if you need it to be a little bit tighter, you can do that. It lets you adjust the white balance and the focus and all these things. And Apple's like, no. We'll handle all of that, which is great when it works.
It doesn't.
But when it doesn't work,
I'm going to be honest.
It's frustrating.
And maybe because it's low light and you have a big window behind you, but these images aren't. I mean, the middle image is pretty good.
Well, that's the thing is I was trying to do something very bad and see what it would look like. And the answer is that the regular iPhone camera managed it. This is the
MacBook Pro camera, which is god awful. Potato.
Yeah, that's the M2, so it's a 720p camera, and it's really poor.
You see how much better the iPhone camera is. And then this is the wide angle, so you're using center stage.
But camo, I mean, the other difference, because camo is great in that it gives you settings. The advantage Apple has, the home field advantage of being the platform owner, is camo. You've got to open your iPhone, you got to launch the camo app, you got to make sure you don't touch in the wrong place and quit the camo app, and then get it in its right place, and then launch the camo app on your Mac. And just to be clear about how this continuity camera stuff works is if your iPhone is logged into your Apple ID and your iPhone is near your Mac that's logged in with your Apple ID, it shows up as a camera.
You don't even have to launch the camera.
You don't
app?
have to wake it up. You don't have to launch any apps.
That is nice.
And if you mount it where it's perpendicular to your surface of your desk, where it's on its side, and the sensors in the iPhone sense that you're not holding it in your hand, but it's actually laying somewhere like above your display or whatever, it automatically switches your Mac's default camera to it because it realizes that it's been placed in basically webcam mode. So there's no interface to that.
That's nice.
And that's something that, only Apple, I hate to say this way, but it's a feature that the platform owner really can implement, and it would be very hard for any third party to approach. And that's where Apple's got it over camo. But then camo's got all the fiddly settings, which are great. And that's why I think there'll still be a place for something like camo.
So did you have to put iOS 16 on your phone to do this?
Yeah, you got to have both.
Okay. Go ahead, Alex.
Yeah. And I think that that's the real push anytime a platform owner does something is to figure out what makes you different. So Camo has its own cropping and control. There's another app that I use called Shoot, which you can actually do telestration over your video just by drawing on it. It actually has a framer that we use inside of office hours. The developer put into Shoot so that frames your head properly. You can see it on the phone. And so there's a lot of things that that people can find different ways to make them different, but they have to. They can't. At this point, just being a camera for the computer is no longer going to be enough.
And then you also, Jason, you show the desk view, which is this weird thing, and I think you'd have to have. What kind of camera would you have to be using? Is it not the camera on the laptop? It has to be.
No, it uses the iPhone camera.
It uses the iPhone camera.
This is a feature of the iPhone camera ultra wide, and the ultra wide captures such an enormous.
It's so wide.
Span that it can see what's in front of you theoretically.
It can see San Diego.
So it can see
apparently.
my UCSD coaster, which is upside down, but the image is right side up. The idea is to share what's on your desk. There are a lot of problems with this. Like on a laptop, what it means is you need to push the laptop so far back that there's space in front of the laptop in which for you to place things, at which point you're reaching way out to an unnatural position to reach your laptop. But there are cases where that could be useful, and Apple implemented it as an app because they know that you're probably going to use this with something like Zoom,
right?
And you're going to want to use it in the context of essentially a screen share,
right?
Except you're sharing physical space in front of your computer.
All the time with his fancy setup.
Sure, I've got a camera mounted on my ceiling to do this.
Yeah, and yeah, exactly. And of course, on iOS today, Micah's always doing that. I think Rosemary is also doing it. But I think they have separate cameras pointing at there.
This is literally, if you're using center stage and you're using desk view, it's just using crops of the same ultra-wide camera and using it in different ways. The quality isn't great, but it's not bad.
It's not bad.
I think
I'm
the issue
surprised
is
at how
really,
good it is, actually.
The issue is really that you this isn't going to be a thing you do accidentally. You're going to have to push your laptop way back in order to make a stage for it. Or if you're on a desktop, you're going to need to push your desktop back enough that there's space right in front. It's no mistake that Apple demoed this with an iMac instead of with a laptop, because it actually kind of makes more sense in that context because you have a desk in front of the computer.
And considering how it must be zooming in quite a bit on the wide angle, That's not.
It looks
bad.
pretty good when you consider how terribly just de-distorted and scaled it must be.
Is your daughter at UCSD? Is that
No,
where-
I went to UCSD.
You went to UCSD.
So I've got the coaster to prove it.
I
I bought one. That was
Instead of a diploma, they give you a coaster. That
just-
seems appropriate.
I was just there on the campus. You go in the university
beer
bookstore.
cozy
There's
and a
merch.
coaster. Yeah.
You choose. You make your choice. Choose your merch.
I'm just teasing you. Just teasing you. Where have your kids decided to go, by the way?
Both my kids are now ducks. They're both going to
The
go.
ducks?
My daughter's already at University of Oregon, and my son is going this
Nice.
fall. So more trips, more car trips to Eugene.
At least you
in
go
my
in one
future.
place instead of two, so that's not bad.
That's true, and I know all the places to stay and stuff. So
Eugene's
that's good.
nice, yeah. All right. How do you get the beta? Do you have to have a developer account to do this?
Nope. Anybody can
Public
go.
is public.
Yeah, public is public. You sign up and you download a profile or an installer, and you're off to the races.
So you go to beta.apple.com. You have to have an Apple account, but of course you have one, right? And look at this. You can put it on iOS, iPadOS, macOS, tvOS, watchOS, even HomePod. Is there a public beta of HomePod software 16? I guess there is. I might put my HomePods on 16. Why not? Why should I?
What's the benefit, though?
What's
I'm
the benefit?
I'm
It's
on
not
that.
clear. Yeah, but good for Apple. They have to do this. So you go to beta.apple.com. You sign in with your Apple ID. Apple knows what devices you have attached to that ID. Then you go to the various devices. You open the settings, and you look for software updates. And you'll have to on some of these devices say get beta updates, like the tvOS. You have to say get beta updates, and then you'll have it.
An update on a device like HomePod is usually about compatibility with the iOS and the Mac.
Oh, of course.
version. So
that makes sense.
It's possible it'll stop working unless you update it.
Yeah. It's not going to change everything to Louis Prima music or anything like that.
Probably not. But you
We
never
can
know.
only
It
hope.
wouldn't be bad. I'm not saying that's a bad thing.
And you should know also, if you rely on continuity features like the extended display modes and things like that that require like an iPad and a Mac, if one of them's on the beta and one of them's on the current version, all that stuff can break. So if you just
So
be
you're
in
kind of
mind,
committed. If you go with one, go with all.
probably, yeah.
Yeah. As they say in
My universal
QAnon,
control setup is broken.
so goes one. One goes one, so
Yeah.
go us all.
Sure.
But that's kind of okay because one of
It's the
basic
QAnon
features,
public beta.
It's Apple and on.
Apple and on. Yeah.
Yeah, one of the basic features I think of iOS 16 is that you have all of these cross-device features, so that it kind of makes sense to update them all at once. Because otherwise, you're not kind of getting the if you're getting all the pain of a beta, you should get all the joy of a beta. And I think cross-platform use is going to be one of the joys.
Yeah, I think that's one of the big selling points, isn't it? Not just using your phone as a camera, but all sorts of continuity features and handoff features and all of that stuff. All right, let's take a little break. Jason Snell survived his first segment. He didn't even break a sweat.
Gonna take a knee, take a breath.
Awesome. Our show today brought to you by Kolide, Kolide. Love this idea because, I kind of have to wear two hats at the company. I am, an employee and I'm a user, but I also am in management. And so it's my interest to keep everybody secure and safe. I think a lot of times, certainly in the old days, if you had, users in your company and IT was basically would lock it down, right? They'd use MDM, mobile device management, lock it down. Sometimes in some companies, it goes so far as to put crazy glue in the USB ports and stuff because they didn't trust users. But there's a problem with that kind of thinking, which is that users know you don't trust them. They get frustrated by the limitations. They want to use devices like they use their home devices. And now they're kind of adversarial. They decide, I'm going to do it my way. Worst case scenario, they instead of using the company provided laptop or phone, they start using their own. And that's when the nightmare begins. Kolide has a different kind of attitude about all this. Kolide is an endpoint security system built around honest security. I love that phrase, honest security. Their philosophy is employees aren't your biggest security risk. They're your allies. Don't make adversaries out of them. Your relationship with them should be based on transparency and informed consent. And I can tell you from real experience that does work. I know a lot of you going, no, I can't trust them. I can't. No, you can. And frankly, especially if you've got engineers and developers, they want to be able to use their machines, as they would use their home machines, which means they end up working on their personal devices. And then they bring that personal device into work and disaster ensues. Collide works with your employees via Slack. Now, you have to be a Slack house to do this. I know many of you are. We are. What's so cool is it notifies your employees of security issues via Slack. It educates them on what's going on, why it's important, and then gives them step-by-step instructions on how to fix the problem themselves. That offloads your IT department, but also enrolls your employees as allies in this fight. It starts, frankly, when you start with Collide, by them putting the Collide agent on their device. It gives them a message in Slack saying, hey, we're just starting this. We're going to use Collide. Help us install it, blah, blah, blah. It's so smart. For IT and security teams, Collide provides the right level of visibility it's, by the way, Mac, Windows, and Linux. It addresses high-risk issues that actually can't be solved through brute force or automation. Go to the Collide website. You can actually see the messages Collide will send via Slack. And you can see what a brilliant way. It's honest security. What's more, it protects your employees' privacy. We know how much people care about privacy these days. With Collide, your end users can see exactly why and how every piece of data is being collected. There is literally, in Collide, a user privacy center. Plus, their source code is open. It's open source, so they can see the open source code base. They can know exactly what's going on, especially for engineers and developers. This becomes very, very important. And we know, we want end users to pick up the slack, as it were. You can meet your security goals. You can without compromising your values. It's open, it's honest, and frankly, it's not top down. It's not top down. It makes an ally of your users. Visit collide.com/MacBreak and get started. Free trial for you, KOLIDE.com/MacBreak. They'll also hook you up. If you follow that address, they'll hook you up with a goodie bag just for activating that free trial. I have my Collide stickers on my laptop, my Collide t-shirt. That's KOLIDE.com/MacBreak. I'm so happy to have these guys on our air because I think this is the right way to do it. And if you're a Slack shop, you should absolutely give it a try. KOLIDE.com, Collide.com. And make sure you do the /MacBreak so you get the goodies, but you also let them know you saw it here. We like that. That's good for us. Okay. Moving right along. That was the big story, of course, the public betas. Big article in the Information this week, and I know Information is paywalled. A lot of you, I pay just so I can read these stories. They have very good inside sources. Wayne Ma, interviewed, I guess has a lot of sources, wrote a very interesting piece, Inside Apple's 8-year struggle to build a self-driving car. Just to give you an idea of where we're going here, subhead, Meaningless Demos, False Hopes, and Map Handicaps. Interviews with 20 people who have worked on Apple's self-driving car project shed new light on its troubled effort to build a car that can drive itself almost anywhere in the world. Now, according to Trip Mickle in his book, which I know you read, you didn't read it?
No, I didn't read it.
Oh, I'll give you my copy.
Okay.
It's worth reading. It's stories we all know, but some of the stuff from the inside we didn't know. For instance, according to Mickle's book, After Steve, the whole idea of the car project did not come from the top down. It didn't come from Tim Cook, but came from employees who said, we are mad that we're not involved in this car business, and we're going to leave for Tesla because we want to work on self-driving cars. And Tim Cook was basically blackmailed into doing this. Once you know that, a lot of this makes more sense. And it also makes me really wonder how serious management is about making this a business. What, Andy?
It's really shocking the way that this story has evolved since the first leak from the Wall Street Journal years ago. Because if you'll remember, one of the things that got all of us so excited about this was that whatever the pitch deck for this project was, when they showed it to people inside the auto industry who were top level people, top level executives with huge careers at the best makers. They were getting these people to quit GM, quit BMW, and go work on this project at Apple. It really did sound like something that was a priority, that they had a focus in mind. And now here we are in 2021 and 2022, where almost every 2 months we keep hearing about a critical member of the team has left and was snapped up by a competitor. You don't let people leave if you're close to something that you're really invested in. So I think this is a really good insight into is this one of Apple's other bets? If Apple listed projects the way that Google does, that this is something that we're just sort of working out. We have enough resources. We can see if this is a thing.
It's kind of
it really does look like
it's kind of a moonshot.
Like another bet.
And X Project corner kind
well,
of instead of
the thing is that what they're trying to do, what everybody's trying to do, is really hard. It's hard to do it because the roads are a mess and there's people on them and there's things that go across and there's construction and so everybody is. I mean, different people are at a different level of where they're at based on what they started with and what the requirements they've decided are okay. But I think Apple's is very high, what their expectations are, and I think that it is it's a very, very difficult thing, which is what you take on as a big company if you've got the cash to do it, because the chances of getting a lot of competition, if you are if you take on the AR, VR market, the car market, some of these are very hard to unwrap. And if you get there, there won't be a lot of people around you to compete.
The biggest takeaway from the story is that software problems have been the biggest factor in the program's struggles. They mention, when you're talking about departures, Andy, they mentioned the departure of Ian Goodfellow, who is a very renowned machine learning scientist and a big get for the car project. He had been leading, according to Wayne Ma, writing in the information, an effort to infuse deep learning into Apple's self-driving software. The self-driving software did well on highways, but failed miserably, was running up on curbs and stuff on the city streets of Sunnyvale. Goodfellow's key role within Titan and the team's use of his machine learning models to improve software hasn't been previously reported. And Ma is saying that his departure actually leaves a big hole. I mean, there are a lot of people. It's been a revolving door. A lot of people have left. But you figure Apple can, get people to replace those people. But there's some like Ian Goodfellow who are at such a high level. There aren't a lot of people like him.
Like Tesla, obviously, because Elon Musk is obsessed with it, Tesla has been trying this a very long time. And Google's been trying this a very long time. And I think what we have to admit is that this is a very, very, very hard problem, the self-driving car part. And it may not be solved for a while, if ever. And I know that there are people out there who are like, no, full self-driving is just a year away. And hi to Elon Musk, who said that. Yeah. But it is like fusion. It's always a few years away, and it's not here. And that doesn't have to be a failure, right? Because there are lots of safety modes and ways to protect drivers that aren't full self-driving that take the electric car of the future forward without it being like, there are these rumors that Apple's goal was to make a full self-driving car without controls, right? And the moment I heard that, I thought that car will never ship, because it will, or at least never meaning like not in the next decade, because to get a car that can't be controlled by people or not easily and is just going to rely on full self-driving, like there are places where self-driving on highways could be workable now or soon, and then lots of places where it isn't. I have to wonder after WWDC last month if what Apple's really doing here is workshopping a whole bunch of car tech and figuring out what works. Because when you saw
You're talking about that CarPlay demo.
Yeah, when you see that next generation CarPlay, some parts of that probably have to come from a real-time operating system. And it does make you wonder if Apple's ultimate play here may end up just being that they built a real-time operating system for Project Titan, and now they're going to work with car makers to do an Android automotive kind of move. And safety features and other features might be a part of that, but maybe it ends up being that that's the place where Apple can play. And I don't think that means Titan is necessarily a failure. I feel like they had to figure out what they could contribute, but it may not be that they can contribute a whole Apple car.
That's not a bad business to be to licensing an operating system to cars. Ma says in the article that Apple it's raised the question of whether Apple's making a major business mistake by betting on nothing less than full autonomy. If that's really, I don't know if that's the case, but if they're saying no, it has to be fully autonomous. as you said, that could be, who knows?
That's dumb. If they're looking for full autonomy, or if they're looking to make an actual car product that they actually sell to consumers, that's very, very concerning. Because there's a lot of heat between advanced driver assist systems. Those are amazing. They're a real product. They work. The contribution they make to safety is amazing. Just the ability to simply say when you're about to leave a local street and you're about to take an exit for a highway on-ramp, to say, help me get onto the highway. That is a problem that these systems can absolutely do. The idea of, even on a surface street, you have permission to initiate emergency braking if it's necessary. That is also something that these systems do very, very well. All the stuff that works, all the stuff that the Department of Transportation is really, really endorsing as something we're going to support you with legislation, we're going to support you with standards. All that sort of stuff, that's software. That's not operating system level stuff. And there are already players in this game that have been doing this for 2 or 3 generations. They know how to integrate all the software into a car, which is one of them. It's almost like a space shuttle, because there's so many different systems that all have to be integrated together. Not only that, but each system has to be validated so that they're safe, so that they actually work. Imagine how difficult it is just to simply have a steering wheel that is drive-by-wire, and that's just a standard technology, that we are going to control the throttle via a wire. We're going to control the steering via a wire. All the different certifications and safety tests that have to be done just to communicate over a wire to, like, here is how we're turning and here's how the wheels could go. Imagine how much more difficult it's going to be for someone who is not like Tesla, who is not playing fast and loose with regulations, to actually put that stuff on the street.
You got to be crazy to make this stuff work. The other thing Moss says is that there's a lack of, without a Steve Jobs to power it through, there's kind of a lack of leadership. He says Tim Cook isn't, he's kind of hands off. And plus, he says some Apple executives are not rooting for Project Titan. Notably, Air Force One, Craig Federighi, has been particularly skeptical of the program over the years, according to 2 people who have heard him speak privately about it. And within other parts of Apple, Titan has become the subject of ridicule because of its chronic leadership turnover and changes in strategy that have previously prompted layoffs. Some managers have proactively warned employees to stay away from the project, according to multiple former Apple employees. Yeah. Now, you've got Kevin Lynch in there now, who is a high-level executive leading it.
Right. And you do, I think that this speaks to the lack of leadership, that you need somebody who really is a true believer and an owner of it, who is going to build a team that really believes in the product. And that's a problem when you don't know what the product is.
True.
Kevin Lynch, I believe, got the Apple Watch across the finish line. But I do wonder, again, what is the finish line? And is it, let's take the tech we've built here and see what of it is turnable into a product? And is that new CarPlay and better partnerships with car makers? I will say the one thing I admire about the full self-driving or bust mentality is there's an argument to be made that if you could crack that, you are going to be really successful. And that if you're Apple, maybe that's the only way that you should ever even consider being part of the car industry, is if you can revolutionize it. But you're setting this like failure state, essentially, which is we're shooting for the impossible. Well, guess what? It's impossible, or probably almost impossible. And then I think that's what's led them to now, which is they're in a situation where they're taking stock and saying, okay, we spent 10 years working on this stuff. What do we got?
There, according to Ma, were 4 kings running the project: Steve Zadesky, Benjamin Lyon, John Wright, and DJ Novotny, who all reported to Dan Riccio before Riccio handed off to Kevin Lynch. Riccio, although technically in charge, according to this article, remained hands-off. The de facto leader, Zadesky, an Apple vice president who had started his career as a mechanical engineer at Ford. So he was a car guy, but he left earlier this year. So this doesn't bode well for any project at any company.
you got to give a team a target. Like Apple designed the iPhone and the iPad because they were designing an iPad that they decided that in the meantime let's design an iPhone. Not because we're really interested in this multi-touch technology. What would I wonder what an operating system based on multi-touch would be like. It's like, okay, that's something that you could research for 10 to 20 years. Once you start to, that's the difference between research, science, and engineering. Engineering is all about, great, let's make a device that is exactly this big, that can cost no more than this, that is going to have battery requirements of exactly these limitations, and let's try to release it in the next 2 years. That's how you actually ship something.
Well, and I think the one thing that Apple has on its favor and to its detriment is that it doesn't need the car. It's making a lot of money. Exactly, so there's not a we're going to go under if we don't figure this out, and there's also they can keep on experimenting and pushing for the big thing because they can afford to keep dumping money into it.
Yeah. The kind of the shocking revelation of this article is that the car almost ran over a jogger. In the first quarter of the year, one of Apple's test vehicles driving around 15 miles an hour almost hit a jogger who was crossing the street at an unmarked crosswalk. Apple's self-driving software, by the way, Tesla's had similar problems, I should point out.
And Waymo.
Yeah. First identified the jogger as a stationary object before recategorizing it as a stationary person, and then finally as a moving pedestrian. Now, that was all within a second, but rather than stop, the car just steered around him. This scared the backup driver. There was a human inside who slammed on the brakes. The car stopped within a few feet of the pedestrian. Apple later determined the car would have almost certainly hit the jogger if the backup driver hadn't acted, at which point Apple grounded its fleet to investigate the jogger incident. It did resume driving within a few days after fixing the identification problem and adding that crosswalk to its map space. But that just shows you how, that's onesie-twosie. How many crosswalks are there in the country, in the world? That's scary when that happens.
Andy made a really good point about Apple's strength being in producing real products and not doing this kind of. I said earlier that Andy and I went back to the 90s. 90s, Apple was really weird, and one of the things they did is a lot of pie in the sky, R&D, tech demo without a purpose and without a product. And when Steve Jobs came back, he basically said, we can't afford to do that. We need to make real products, and they've been successful doing that. I think what you're seeing with Project Titan and Waymo and a bunch of other things that are other bets, like what Google does, is you've got companies with so much money that they're willing to just, play the lottery, because they'll say, look, what if we can invent the self-driving car? We will win. Right. And if we don't, what do we lose? Some money? We got lots of that. Right. It's fine. And so,
especially if the employees are saying, we got to do this, we got to do this.
So is Project Titan a money pit that's not a real product and may not amount to anything? Yeah, kind of as intended.
Yeah.
Sort of.
What? Although it does have an M designation, which apparently means
they think there's a product
it's not
there.
Blue sky. They think there might be a product there.
Sure.
But Johnny Ive has weighed in on the design. Just last bit from this article, and we'll move on.
Sorry, go ahead.
Working on the physical car design continues, according to Wayne Ma in the information. Johnny, who now works for Apple on a contract basis, has told the Titan team, this is so Johnny, lean into the weirdness of the vehicle's design and don't try to hide the sensors, said a person with direct knowledge of the discussion. The current design features 4 seats that face inward, a living room, so passengers can talk to one another, and a curved ceiling similar to the roof of a Volkswagen Beetle. So it's a little orb with a living room inside. No steering wheel, probably, right? No brake pedal.
Nope.
Designers are experimenting with a trunk compartment that rises, giving owners easier access to the storage space, and then automatically lowers. Apple designers have discussed large screens that rise from behind the seats and lower when they aren't in use. They've also discussed allowing passengers to lie flat and sleep in the vehicle. Those safety considerations could get in the way. Apple hopes to. This is actually what's most interesting to me. They are trying to get exemptions from NHTSA, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, to remove the steering wheel and brakes from the car. And they actually hired NHTSA's chief counsel to help negotiate this. Good luck. And employees are now discussing how to disguise a new version of the self-driving test vehicle that more closely resembles the final version of the car Apple wants to produce and could hit the road as early as next year. So they're still doing it. They're still working.
It is an interesting aspect. The part of believe me, part of the research into this is simply into sociology, where should you have a self-driving car be identifiable to other drivers as a self-driving car, meaning that, look, this vehicle may not operate if you've trained yourself for 20 years on predicting the unpredictability of how human beings drive cars, this is not that thing. Or on the other hand, should you make it as normal as possible, because we're already seeing that if someone in test markets where self-driving vehicles are already on the road, if other drivers know that this is a robotic vehicle, that they are going to be more of a jerk to this car because they figure out that maybe the software is a little bit more conservative. Also, they know that they're not going to be sued by a human driver, all these sort of things. So there's just so much research that has to go into this, and maybe this is why these are always interesting research projects, and they will always be really valuable to a company like Apple, because a company like Apple needs researchers, and sometimes they really just want to work the problem, as opposed to, we know that we hired you off of this really, really incredible AI project that you got working on at Stanford. We really just want you to improve the accuracy of search results in Apple Photos. Like, no, that's not why I left academia.
All right, I want to take a little break, and then I want to talk about lockdown mode, because this is one of the features of iOS 16. Getting a lot of attention. It's kind of interesting. Apple just put out a press release saying, actually a week ago, Apple expands industry-leading commitment to protect users from highly targeted mercenary spyware. Wow. If you are potentially being targeted by mercenary spyware, we've got an answer for you. It's so nice to have Jason Snell with us. 6colors.com, right?
That's it.
And Incomparable podcast. And you got how many podcasts total?
I can't count that high.
Yeah, I didn't think so.
10
10 fingers and toes. That's it. What are you going to do?
It's a lot. There's a lot.
Where's the best place to go to find out what podcasts you're doing?
I post a lot of them at 6colors.com, but you can also go to theincomparable.com and relay.fm. That's mostly where I am.
Yeah.
I need to update my current podcast list.
You know what I'm going to do just for you? We have on the Twitch
such a
site,
deal.
we have, just for you, we have a page, a bio page, and I am going to make sure that bio page lists every darn podcast in your quiver, if that's where you keep your podcasts.
That's a lot. I mean, I could list them here, but there's not enough time.
Not enough time.
Jason, can you set up an API so that to make sure that page should simply ping your server to ask what is the current list, what are the current names? I think
it'll be a JSON API.
Get it? Did they name it after you?
It's very funny.
No, I think it was thank you, Alex. Best response to a joke ever is, that's very funny.
That's amusing.
That's very funny.
Highly amusing. It's a very Spock.
Got to get the gravelly voice.
And Ihnatko also here, GBH in Boston. I noticed they've dropped the W in much of their communications.
Yeah, I don't know why. Officially, the media organization, I think, is GBH, even though, of course, the FCC thinks of it as WGBH.
Does that stand for anything?
Yes,
Great Big
Blue
Honkin'
Hills.
Show?
No, in the Boston area, there's this huge. We don't have a mountain in the Boston area. We have this big hill called Blue Hill, and they used to put the transmission towers for all the radio stuff. So this stood for Great Blue Hills.
Oh, that's see, you learn something on this show, don't you? Also, something completely useless, but you've learned something, and that's what really
that really is my power position in this foreplay.
They've dropped the W, no more. In fact, when I used to work back east in radio, it was the bane of every radio DJ's existence to say W all the time. That's one letter, 3 syllables. Makes no sense. Also, Alex Lindsay, 090.media and office hours. .global. Will you do a deconstruction of the NASA stream with Telestrator and all that?
I'll take a look at it. I haven't seen it because we were on air, and then I've been in meetings.
It was kind of a wreck.
I'll take a look at it. Yeah,
kind of
absolutely.
A crash. But since office hours today was about focus on audio, I think you might.
Yeah, exactly. We'll take a look at it.
You might want to take a look. Why is he pointing at me?
He's excited about you.
Me. You. Office hours needs you. Our show today brought to you by our crowd. This is a crowd I want to be a part of. As rising interest rates, inflation, and global complexity throw the stock market into turmoil, a lot of investors, the savvy ones, are turning to, or at least looking for alternative ways to grow their money. And, you know, if you have put away the appropriate amount of savings for emergencies, for retirement, and all that stuff. I think it is necessary to kind of broaden your scope. Our Crowd makes it easy for you to diversify your investments into a variety of expertly vetted, high-growth private companies across stages, geographies, and even industries: biotech, cybersecurity, renewable energy. These are the kinds of investments that really used to be reserved to the elite institutional investors. No one even would know about them because they haven't yet gone public. So they're private, they're small, but of course that's where the greatest growth potential lies. Every month, Our Crowd vets hundreds of startups across the globe and then brings them to their members, a select few identified for outsized growth potential. Of course, you don't have to invest in any of these. And in fact, it's free to join Our Crowd, but it's a great way to find out about these investments ahead of time. Our Crowd backs these investments. They commit their own capital. They're not just throwing stuff at you. They're in, and they leverage their relationships with multinationals and global investment leaders to help drive their portfolio companies' growth. They're in fact venture capitalists. So they're in. They even have not only some portfolio companies that you can invest in, but they have some funds you can invest in as well. Now, of course, there's a catch. Here's the catch. You have to be an accredited investor, and that's going to vary depending on what country you're in. In the U.S., there are income requirements and so forth. But if you are an accredited investor, you can discover investment opportunities well beyond the stock market. Get in on the stuff that only the big shots have been able to get into up to now. Single company deals you can get in as little as $10,000. The funds start at $50,000, but a minimum of $10,000 is required to invest. And again, you have to be an accredited investor. Those terms, they vary depending on where you invest. So what you need to do is go to ourcrowd.com/MacBreak. First thing they'll ask you is what country you're investing from, and then they'll tell you what the requirements are. If you meet those requirements, it's free to join the fastest growing venture capital investment community in the world. Just to find out what's happening is fascinating. ourcrowd.com/MacBreak. A great way to get in these private market investments before everybody else does. And that's the best time, right? ourcrowd.com/MacBreak. Thank you, Our Crowd, for your support. So, it's interesting. This is this Apple's lockdown? Is this Apple's response to Pegasus, the NSO Group's zero-click software that was used by nation states to target dissidents, journalists, bad guys?
That's it.
Yeah.
Feels like it.
Yeah, they got tired of the perception that the iPhone was insecure fundamentally because of these very specific tactics taken mostly by state actors who are paying NSO Group. And so they decided they would just create a mode that turns off a bunch of stuff in iOS in order to reduce the attack surfaces. So your phone will be kind of crappy, but this stuff won't work anymore because, that's the challenge, right? Is like, I don't want to break everybody's iPhone.
Right.
Most people are not going to be like this lockdown feature feels like very much, if you are in the target audience for this group. You are a journalist or a dissident
or a politician.
You are somebody who probably a state actor would pay lots of money to get onto your phone. And that's the point here. I think it's also a funny move that Apple basically said we'll donate all the proceeds of any lawsuits we have against NSO to the foundation that's going to research more security. A
$10 million cybersecurity grant. Not to mention a $2 million bug bounty for anybody who can break lockdown. Google did this a couple of years ago. They did the Advanced Protection Program. You'd have to have 2 Titan keys. And it was in response to the break-in of the Democratic National Committee's email accounts. So Google really said this is for politicians, public figures who might be targeted. This goes a lot farther, or it's maybe not goes a lot farther, but is different. Apple already has two-factor.
As Jason said, it basically closes off attack surfaces. It's the difference between having a normal house and saying, okay, these windows let in light and they're pretty, but they're a place where burglars get in, so we're going to board them up. We're going to take off the doorbell. We're going to all these things that make it less convenient. Things like No,
That's the doorbell. I love it.
This is exactly the sort of things we're talking about, where things like it's not going to accept any messages from anybody that you haven't interacted with before, because there are no open message exploits where just sending a malformed message to iMessage will cause an infection. Things like active scripts on active code in the browser are turned off. If a phone is locked, plugging it into a data cable will do nothing. And what's really
that's kind of great.
Google has,
right?
Google
will it
Google
charge?
has,
You can still charge, but the data is shut off.
Yeah.
No
believe
accessories can be used.
Yep.
But you could charge it. So that you know what, that would be worth turning on before you charge at the airport or at a bar. Just turn on lockdown mode.
Well, and I think that the pushback will probably come from the intelligence communities, because while
They
NSO
don't like
had
that
something
so
that
much, do they?
small countries were able to buy it from NSO, but we should assume that the larger countries already had it. And so this is going to.
But the NSA, for instance, they're not going to step up and say, "Hey, please don't turn on lockdown mode. We can't spy on you."
Well, and
They're not gonna
the
say
problem
that.
is it would show what they were doing,
Right.
and so I think that would be very difficult. But we just have to watch the pushback will be, what about terrorists, and what about drug dealers, and what about that's going to be the
Oh yeah, Apple,
the
you're
thing. If
giving them a
someone-
tool. Consider the children.
Yeah.
Okay, so the
that's-
politics is a
what
huge
comes
part of
next.
this story, and I think one of the reasons Apple has made such a big deal out of the NSO group is because it's framing the story as being there's this shady profit-making company that is acting as a mercenary, selling to shady countries and shady quasi-government groups the way to break into the phones of heroic dissidents and journalists, right? That is a way better way
I think
to
that's
do
the
this
opening paragraph, actually.
than to say, also, this is going to stop the
FBI with the
FBI
San
from looking at.
Bernardino,
Yeah, exactly right. So part of this is the framing of it, that Apple wants to frame it in this very particular way, and it honestly it does kind of make it hard if you're an American government official. Let's say to say, well, actually, we're against this. So
I'm going to disagree, because Apple still has the loophole that law enforcement loves, which is you can serve a search warrant to Apple for iCloud data.
Of course.
And everything backed up to, and this does not turn that off.
It doesn't turn off iCloud backups. That's hilarious.
Everything that's backed up to iCloud is available to law enforcement, and Apple is always going to keep that. I don't think, in fact, I actually think you've, Alex, said that Apple will at some point turn that off. I think they leave that on because that's their safety valve, right?
You can turn it off.
But you can
don't
turn it
have
off.
to.
You can turn it off.
That's the point. Is these
again,
features are features that you otherwise couldn't control.
Well, as an example with the San Bernardino shooter, Apple's first statement to the FBI is, well, just bring the phone back to his house. It'll back up to iCloud, and we'll give you everything.
Yeah.
And then they said, oh, the FBI blew it because they didn't do that. They tried to unlock the phone first.
Well, and again, they're not blind. There's a lot of things that they still know about your phone. They know where your phone is. They know who you talk to, who you were standing next to, who are you. If you have two phones, they know both of those phones probably belong to you. And so there's a lot of things that
And they
still
will
have
handle that
information.
over if given a lawful subpoena, yes.
I'm saying they don't need Apple for that.
Oh, they
They're
don't need it.
cell phone
You're
companies.
right.
Yeah, so the cell companies will tell them all those things. And so I think that it's not like they're going blind, but I still think that this is part of the kind of at an angle the way the intelligence community is trying to push this is I think there's a lot of push for breaking up the Apple Store and opening that up, because if it keeps on closing down like this, it gets really, really hard for them to get into, and they really want other less closed down systems available. So I think there's a whisper from industry, but there's also a whisper from intelligence into our Congress people's ear of like, hey, we really need to crack this up so it can't be as tied down.
So here's what happens with messages. Message attachment types other than images are blocked. So and by the way, that's one of the ways NSO Group gets in is with a text message. This actually almost admits that Apple has problems with its metadata rendering tool, which is, by the way, Microsoft has the same problems everybody does. That's kind of a notoriously difficult thing to secure.
Right. It's literally your device is saying,
It's an interpreter.
I accept arbitrary data.
Just send it to me and I'll interpret it.
It's easier said than done. Yeah.
Some features, and this is another good one, like link previews are disabled, so you won't see a preview popping up. That to me is not so onerous. I'd turn that on. When it comes to web browsing, they're following in the footsteps of Google. Google did some study about 6 months ago that discovered that most of the flaws in browsers came from just-in-time JavaScript compilation, JIT. So JITs are disabled unless the user excludes a trusted site from lockdown mode. So I don't know how much that's going to break the internet. Google does offer or has talked about turning off JITs in Chrome, which also, by the way, weirdly speeds up the browsing considerably. So I'm not sure, if this is a feature that it might be something you do want to turn on. I suspect it is. We've talked about this on Security Now. As for Apple services, incoming invitations and service requests, including FaceTime calls, are blocked, but only if you have not previously sent a request to the initiator. So if it's somebody somebody you've talked to before, not blocked, but stranger danger, we're going to block them. Again, I think everybody should turn this on so far. Wired connections, as you mentioned, Jason, with a computer or accessory are blocked when the iPhone is locked. So that's important because people charge, they plug in their, phone to systems that they just don't know about. And
again, that's not a bad thing.
That's a good thing.
Also significantly, that's the tools that law enforcement uses when they
celebrate.
Exactly. When they just grab your phone while you're.
That's what this is.
Can I quickly search your car permission?
This is anti-celebrate. That's what that is. So if
it's
your phone
anti any way to get in. I mean, Apple, this is like one fail swoop to attempt to first. They're saying there's a big bonus if you figure out how to get in, but this is a big attempt to close off all the doors that were opened.
It also turns off profiles. This is the only one that I actually use profiles because I use NextDNS, and I put a profile on my iPhone that allows it to become the DNS provider. Configuration profiles cannot be installed, and that is that's a big fat hole. If you as a bad guy could get a profile installed on the phone, the device cannot enroll into MDM while lockdown mode is turned on. MDM, which we were just talking about with the Collide ad, and I know they're one of your sponsors too.
Yeah, sure.
MDM is how IT sometimes will lock down devices, but it's also, remember, one of the parental lockdown apps got busted because they were using MDM inappropriately. It's designed for enterprise. They were using it to control what kids could do on the
There's
phone.
a lot of rules of you can't do that on an iPhone that are actually have a little footnote that says except if it's in a organization,
right.
And then you turn on MDM and you can distribute apps,
right.
And so you can create sort of like a piracy ring where you distribute apps. There's so many different things you can do because it's literally a place where Apple's locked it down for regular users and then said for corporate users, oh no, it's okay, you can do this, and then that gets exploited and you end up with these scenarios where people are installing profiles that they don't know what they do in order to get this app that they want to use or get this feature they want to use. And it's interesting, though, that it says profiles can't be installed, which I find that fascinating because I think it may suggest that you can have a profile on your phone. But when you turn on lockdown mode, it's not going to install new profiles.
So I could have my NextDNS profile, but it would lock. Oh, that's interesting.
Might be. Because they've made it easy. Again, it's one of those things where Apple's made it easier to install a profile, which is great as a user because you're like, oh, you tap download and it says, okay, it's over in your settings. But that also makes it dangerous because it's so easy. So lockdown mode would turn that off.
Would you turn on lockdown mode, Jason?
I wouldn't.
I might. You have it. You could.
I could, but
by the way, it's not just iPhone. It's iPad and Mac.
And Mac. It just makes it's just going to make it inconvenient, though. That's
you don't want to do any of these things.
I would rather not lose all those features if I could avoid it. But I'll tell you, if a man in a suit came to my door and said, there's a country that is on the other side of the planet that is mad at you.
Lockdown.
I would turn on lockdown mode immediately.
Yeah.
Andy, would you use it?
I would turn it on, and then as soon as it becomes inconvenient, turn it right off.
Yeah, me too. That's what I'll do.
But the great thing about it is that there have been a lot of people who are in that sort of situation where, hey, your name has appeared on a list of people who have been whose devices have been targeted by NSO spyware, and then oh my God, what do I do? Don't know, but just thought I'd let you know. Now the answer is turn on this. Whereas the old advice used to be maybe stop using your phone entirely or buy a special super hardened phone that is absolutely just like a flip phone from 1999, or turn this thing on. It will give you enough protection that you could at least continue to use apps like Signal and still contact the dissidents that you're writing about that people want to kill you for writing about.
Would you turn it on, Alex?
There are times when I've done jobs where I would definitely
Yes.
turn it on because I was probably at risk.
When you go in
So
go in the White House, do they take your phone and put it in a bag?
Nope.
No?
Not in the White House. There's other government buildings that they do
places.
take your
I know the
take
Pentagon.
your watch.
They often do.
You know,
that,
but they not in the White House. The White House mostly is if you want to plug into the network, they give you. They're like, I always tell everyone, just when you plug that Ethernet in, just know that a lot of things are going to look at your computer. So
well,
so
that
anyway,
makes sense. I would hope so.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, but I don't see. Again, there are times when I was doing things that I
I love how Alex gets when he's trying to circumlocute what.
So, but there are times when I would not. I would have turned it on. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I asked Amy Webb this because she does a lot of work with the Pentagon. She says, yeah, when you go on a skiff, you give them your phone.
Yeah.
She says it always makes me nervous because who knows what's going on with that phone while it's in the bag.
Well, I would even say if you do a lot of work with the Pentagon, you may want to turn this
on
feature
lockdown.
on, right?
Yes.
Well, and a lot of times if you know you're going into a building that's going to take your phone, you just don't bring it with you. It's a lot safer to do that.
Does this sell iPhones? Is this enough so that people who are looking for there's like the black phone. There are these phones, and every time somebody comes up with one of these super secure phones, the security community goes, yeah, right. Except for that thing, or you could use this, or none of this stuff is really secure. Maybe this is going to make a market for the iPhone. I remember talking to Phil Zimmerman, I think it was, who created PGP. He said I would never take an Android phone to Black Hat, for instance, or
Well, and I think that it is serving a relatively small group of people. Like in the grand scheme of how many iPhones Apple does, I don't think it's going to really affect. Maybe there'll be enough paranoid people that will buy another 500,000 phones, but it's really serving like 5,000 or 10,000 people that are really targets of state actors. Maybe a little bit more now that Russia and China are doing what they're doing. So, but it's not. The phone is pretty secure on its own.
Yeah.
And so this is like
maybe the next president won't get a highly modified Windows CE phone or a BlackBerry, but get an iPhone with lockdown.
So why Apple does this? Because Alex is right. The potential market here is incredibly small.
Yeah.
Why does Apple do something like this? And the answer is because it's bad publicity for Apple to have a story about a dissident in a far-off country who is kidnapped and thrown in jail or executed by a oppressive regime because they got hacked using their iPhone, right? It's like that is a story Apple doesn't want to exist. And so that's really what's going on here. Is I do think, yes, of course, less cynically, Apple doesn't want their products. They hate that the NSO group is hacking their products. They hate it. And they don't want any company, any government to do that. But the other part of it is that they don't want the perception that the Apple platforms are unsafe because privacy and security are one of their selling points. And that's really the story.
They're doing everything they can to block zero-click exploits like the Pegasus exploit. But you can't really put out a press release about that. That's just your ongoing security research. So this is nice because it's a nice press release that you can put out.
I do think that the primary driver is simply that Google and Apple, they both take an enormous amount of pride in security. That this is something that has to be done just on principle, just to keep the technology moving forward. And this is part of their responsibility as the people who are creating the technology that other people use. And I really believe that the match that lit the fuse was a team inside of Apple saying, look, we've been looking at ways to lock out all this sort of stuff. A good intermediary step would be, what if we just give people a mode that they could use, and then it rolled off from there. I don't think it was necessarily a response to bad PR, although that certainly was part of it. I do think this is mostly a principled response. Look, the question that a lot of us should be asking technology companies is, you didn't even try to do the very least that you could do. We can't expect you to solve the entire problem, but why didn't you do at least the least that you could do? This is better than the least that they could do, and I'm glad that Apple did it.
Yeah, it's beneficial in so many different ways because it lets them take pride in their product being more secure. It means that they're not going to have stories out there about people's iPhones betraying them.
Sure.
It allows them to attack and put out a reward, right, for people who can try to break this thing. Like it's a winner on all fronts except for what Alex mentioned earlier, which is it's a winner on all fronts unless the narrative gets changed to be Apple is helping bad guys with this.
Show of hands. Anybody order a MacBook Air M2 last Friday? You did.
Me,
What
yeah.
color?
Midnight.
Midnight. It's the only color. Alex, Andy?
Nope.
Not yet.
As tempted as I was by the range of colors, about gray, darker gray, and an even darker version of gray. No.
Yeah, silver.
Silver, gray, and gray.
Gray silver, slightly off yellowy silver, and dark gray.
But midnight blue is going to be nice.
Yeah, it is,
Bring
and it is
in.
blue.
That one you have to come in when you get it.
Sure, absolutely.
What is your ship date?
Early August. Early August. It seems like they built, because they're having supply chain issues, it looks like they built a lot of the base models. So if you ordered the pure base model, you might have gotten them this week.
Friday, yeah.
But
then it flipped because I got up at 5 a.m. on Friday because I'm an idiot. And immediately ordered the top of the line. Max it out. 2 terabytes, 24 gigabytes, 10 core GPU or whatever. And it said August 9th. And which, of course, is not this Friday. Some people will get it Friday. But now if you order the base model, it's later. And it's August 9th for the build to order. So
well, that's because they've run out of the base models.
They've run out of the base model.
That they built in advance, right?
They didn't have a lot of them.
Yeah, but it sounds like immediately if you ordered anything but the build to order, you were already going to be late July or early August.
Yeah.
This is by
the way, I did not push
is,
the buy button. I played with it.
Yeah, I mean, it's fun. It's fun to
I was so
put things in your
tempted.
cart, put in the bag.
See, it's still in the bag.
Yeah, I mean,
It's still in the bag there. Just waiting for me to come along and check out. But I ain't gonna do it. Also chose midnight blue. You might know.
yeah, it's the best.
Just in case you're curious, max it out $2,500. I'm
For an Air. Wow.
Yeah.
I'm thinking though.
2 terabytes.
After
24 gigs of RAM.
and we talked about this last week. Renee, I think, debunked it after seeing the overheating problems with the MacBook Pro 13 M2. I kind of want to wait till some people get the M2 MacBook Air and find out, like Jason, find out what he thinks.
Yeah, I mean that is the question. Is there's no cooling in this at all? Although it was engineered. This is a new enclosure, so they built it knowing what chip was going to go in it, and so they must know what the thermal profile is here. I think the truth is that if you're going to press it, like that story last week, if you're going to press it to that level, you probably shouldn't be buying a MacBook Air.
Or a MacBook Pro.
Or that 13-inch MacBook Pro, which should probably not be called a Pro.
Wait for a studio
right?
or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. As tempted as I am, it makes sense this chip would be hotter. It's got more transistors. It's bigger. It's about 20% faster, so maybe 20% hotter. So it makes sense. But again, the Pro did not have a redesigned chassis.
Right.
So it's a hotter chip with the same cooling capabilities as the M1. Presumably the MacBook Air being fully redesigned.
Also, let's be clear. I mean, the only way that I know Renee talked about this, but the only way that overheating, that
you have to go
throttling,
crazy.
not only did the throttling it was still faster than the M1, but you have to max out the CPU and then max out the GPUs with a video render. Almost nobody will ever be in that situation. And all of my M1 experiences have been, can I export 4K video and do a bunch of other things? And it gets a little warm, and that's about it. So I would anticipate it'll be kind of like that for the Air. But you're right. That's why we have product reviewers is to try this stuff out and say.
Geekbench, some Geekbench benchmarks have started to emerge for the Mac 14,2. There's a number.
It's
I don't know what it means.
It's the lesson we've learned. I mean, Andy knows this too. It's the lesson we've learned about the Apple Silicon is that the chip is the chip is the chip is the chip. They can put it in a different enclosure. It's the chip. An M1 is an M1.
Yep.
An M2 is an M2. An M1 Pro is an M1 Pro. Like they don't really vary. All those M1s are exactly the same computer in a different wrapper, and I would be shocked if the M2s aren't the same.
Yeah, that's what we're going to have to. We're just entering the range in which Apple is going to be expected to and can differentiate one model from the other. I mean, I and along with everybody else is wondering, okay, if this is the capacity you can get inside a MacBook Air, largely because the thermals are so much better in this new generation of chips, what is going to define a MacBook Pro now? Is it going to be connectivity? Is it going to be size? Is it going to be screen? Is it going to be battery? Because honestly, it's hard to, if you really want to dump a lot of money into a supremely powerful device that can do nearly everything you would want a mobile computer to do, MacBook Air is really there for at least 80% of the people out there. So I'm hoping there's a revolution coming for the MacBook Pro.
Yeah. I mean, this is fun. According to these Geekbench results, the M2 MacBook Air outperforms the base model Mac Pro Tower, which costs $5,000 more. Yeah, that's got the Xeon W in it, but that's 3 years old, 4 years old.
Well, and let's not forget too, the classic story here is almost nobody is upgrading from the M1 to the M2.
Right.
They're going from Intel. They're going to get the enormous leap in performance and battery life that you go from Intel to M1, and then a 15% bonus above that for the M2. So that's the true story here, right? More than anything else, is that these are people coming from late generation Intel laptops. My wife is using a 2018 MacBook Air Intel, and it's I used it the other day, and it's incredibly slow and it's miserable to use. So I'm really looking forward to getting her on Apple Silicon too, because it's going to be a huge leap for her, even if she just goes to the M1. And if she goes to the M2, another 10% on top of that.
How could you let your wife still be on Intel?
I was waiting for this new MacBook Air to come out. Honestly.
Oh, okay then. So she's getting the midnight blue.
No, she's going to get my M1 MacBook Air, and I'm going to take the M2.
You know what? I do the same thing to my wife.
Yeah, she's going to get a little hand-me-down.
And that's when I say, the M1 is the M1 is
They're
the
still
M1
selling
is
it.
the M1.
Yeah.
They're all the
good.
same.
They're all
it doesn't
good.
matter.
It's Apple Silicon. It's great.
You know what they're not selling? The Touch Bar. It's vintage. Now, the first Touch Bar MacBook Pro, it's vintage.
Does that have like wide lapels?
Yeah.
Acid washed MacBooks now.
Yeah. The first MacBook Pro with a Touch Bar has now been added to the vintage products list. It also has a butterfly keyboard, so
it's good stuff.
It's never too soon to deprecate. I'm glad they're getting rid of the Touch Bar. That's the reason. Other reason I didn't buy an M2 MacBook Pro 13, because I don't want that Touch Bar.
I mean, do we know that for a fact? Of course they're getting rid of the Touch Bar.
Of course
But
they are.
I like kind of saying, well, they haven't said they're getting rid of the Touch Bar.
That's
They
true.
still sell a Touch Bar. They are making a computer with a Touch Bar
They made
today,
a brand new one.
in 2022.
Brand new one with a Touch Bar.
They never the code word at Apple is never, well, that didn't work out, so we're replacing it. It's like, we've made the MacBook Pro that everybody loves, and we've made it so people love it even more.
Yeah, that's right.
Like, okay.
With function keys and not the Touch Bar.
The butterfly keyboard that everybody loves. We're in our third iteration of making people love it even more.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So Alex just had to take off. Sorry about that, but thank God I've got Jason and Andy here. I think they can pick up the slack.
Is the Queen okay? What news?
Yeah, I'm worried that Alex has gone into lockdown mode.
I think the Pentagon called. And,
has London Bridge fallen?
Yes. London Bridge has fallen. Okay. So,
sorry.
Anyway,
we were all thinking it.
Yeah. So, Emmy Awards out, and Apple has. I have to say, I did not like the first round of Apple TV Plus shows. Was not impressed by the morning show. Even Ted Lasso was good, but not great.
Wow, you have no heart.
No
what is
heart.
wrong with you?
I have no
What is
heart.
wrong with you?
I am the black
Ted Lasso
heart.
is great.
No, it wasn't great. But I have liked a lot some of the new Apple TV Plus stuff, like Slow Horses.
Really good.
Very, very good. So they've done some
Severance,
amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like Apple, and this, you know what a surprise. They were brand new at this. Took them a little while. They started to gain some traction. The Hollywood Critics Association Awards. Oh, I thought these were the Emmys. The most nominated streaming. Is this like the Foreign Press Awards? Is this another Golden Globe kind of a thing? The Hollywood Critics Association gave Apple 53 nominations, the most nominated streaming service. Severance and Ted Lasso, Best Drama, Best Comedy, 12 nominations each. So obviously, I am just a Grinch, and Ted Lasso is in fact great. Mm-hmm. 16 acclaimed programs, including, I'm reading from the press release, can you tell? Including major category recognitions for Acapulco, The After Party, Carpool Karaoke, the series, Central Park, Dickinson, The Last Days of Ptolemy Gray, The Morning Show, Pachinko, Prehistoric Planet, The Problem with Jon Stewart, Schmigadoon, which unaccountably has been renewed, Did you watch Schmigadoon?
It was pretty funny, actually.
Okay.
It's a parody
Okay.
of 50s and 60s musicals. Yeah.
Yeah, it was. The first episode was fun.
Yeah.
Wasn't going to watch
It goes
more
on
than
in that. It goes on in that. It's
On
a
in
very
that
long
vein.
Saturday Night Live sketch. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly.
But a funny one.
I got the point.
You did get it.
I got the point.
They're in a musical, Leo.
They're in a musical.
That's the Mhm.
Slow Horses. We Crash, which, by the way, another fantastic miniseries.
The Emmys did come out today, by the way.
So I'm reading the wrong list.
Yeah, so the Emmys came out. Ted Lasso got a nomination for Best Comedy, Severance for Best Drama. So they did.
They kind of duplicated.
They did repeat in the top categories there. Yeah.
I apologize. I don't know how. I guess I was reading an Apple press release. There's my.
Yeah, I mean
there's
that's
my
it.
error.
Also, we should also recognize that the Hollywood Critics Association. I think they have separate categories for network, cable, and streaming.
So they would do well in streaming. Yeah. Yeah. See, best streaming documentary, best streaming reality show. Okay.
Best
So
but
in
it shows
the
you
actual
if they're-
real awards,
the awards that you will put in the background when you're doing like a video chat with somebody.
Precisely the one you're going to put on your mantle. Succession, big time, and I'm glad because that is the best TV show that was ever made. The most nominations.
But yeah, Severance is in that drama category. That's a tough category, and Ted Lasso in the comedy category,
Yeah.
also a tough category.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Won last year for Best Comedy. It will face off against Only Murders in the Building, the Steve Martin Short, Selena Gomez vehicle. Only Murders in the Building 17. Again, not a. I hope Steve's not listening, but not a great show.
Wow, the Grinch strikes again.
I
Is
have
there-
high
when you-
standards.
When you had your heart removed, did they fill it with like packing, or is it just a void that's with you all the time?
Netflix 3 nominations.
By the way, the best comedy on that list is Hacks on HBO Max.
I enjoyed Hacks.
Fantastic.
Again, not a great show.
Oh man, you're just killing me. You're killing me.
I love Gene Smart.
You're killing
And
me.
it's great to see.
So what's the best comedy then? What's the best on that list? What's the best
Let
show
me
on
look
that
at the list. I didn't see the list, so let me see. It ain't The White Lotus. Is
Barry?
that on the list? Barry. No, Barry.
No.
Did you see the last episode of
No,
Barry?
didn't.
Kind of depressing. What else?
Oh,
What
yeah.
else we got?
Curb Your Enthusiasm, season 90,000.
Yeah.
That's a long running.
What We Do in the Shadows
not-
is great.
Okay, What We Do in the Shadows. Love that
That
show.
would be up there for me.
That's a great show. All right.
But Apple getting awards. They're
They're in there.
You know they love it.
They're in the
You know they
running.
love
They're
it.
in there. They're in the game.
That's it.
And that's all that really matters. Squid Game. They're speaking of games. Got a nomination. Stranger Things, Ozark. All right. So those are the real awards. But Apple, how many do they get? A handful.
It's hard to find.
Yeah.
But yeah, also it's also weird because I like most of America seems to have like gone away from like broadcast television. The only time I see it is when I'm picking out things to record for next week for my Plex DVR, and sitcoms they just don't exist on network television anymore. And and dramas are now just down to whoever was on a nighttime drama 12 years ago playing a cop or a firefighter. So really this is the king's ransom for streaming platforms, because this is where comedy is being made. This is where real drama is being made.
I am happy to see Rhea Seehorn nominated for her fantastic role in Better Call Saul. Which
What a surprise she was.
She's been ignored for many seasons. Kim Wexler, very, very good. Finally getting her nomination.
I think, yeah.
Can I do a plug for
go ahead.
the Apple TV show that we haven't mentioned and never gets mentioned and never gets put in awards is For All Mankind, which I think is actually spectacularly good and keeps getting better.
And keeps getting better. I think that's important.
I think season 3 is like it manages to be a family drama and also a space action drama at the same time. And it's real good, people. If you haven't watched For All Mankind, you've got 2 full seasons and half of season 3 already out there. And it's really good.
Yeah.
It's really
It's
great.
an alternative reality space program.
Yeah, the
where
Russians
it's not-
got there
it's-
first, which is
Yeah, and so
right.
everybody keeps their foot on the gas in terms of space
Yeah.
stuff.
including China.
So it's not far future, not so far future that it doesn't feel like it's connected to our reality. Because most of the design is based on, well, what if the space shuttle EVA suit, but if the same designers were trying to build something else in the 1990s and 1980s.
It's
season
No,
1
it-
is set in the 70s, season 2 in the 80s, and season 3 in
I
the
like that,
90s.
yeah.
But they're going to Mars.
It's
in
no
the 90s.
Space Force, but it's okay.
Yeah. Famously.
I don't even know what's
I'm
real
teasing
and
you.
what's a lie
I'm
now.
teasing
Leo.
you. Yeah, I know.
don't even know.
Can I just warn you, Leo? If you thought that like Renee and I could really start disrupting the show, talking about like comics and pop culture, imagine Jason and I, that relationship plus another 15 years, and this is the amount of trouble that you're in, especially when Alex leaves.
Well, I already verified that Jason is not the comic book nerd that Renee is. So
Yeah.
So we're gonna
Babylon 5.
But what we're gonna
do it.
lose
The
in
reboot.
comic books, we're gonna gain.
Now, when the
in
Minbari,
TV.
yeah, well, I do know comic book stuff, but not like Renee, not even close.
Yeah.
Not even
Yeah.
close. It's not. No.
Well, maybe you could bone up.
All
for
right,
Andy.
I'll get Renee to
Okay?
teach me.
Okay.
I really think the Drach are going to be coming back in a big way in the reboot. I really think so.
You know, you wear green and I wear purple. That's the Drazi way.
You know
We
what?
fight to the death.
My paso de arde. Nice to have you on the show.
What else? What else?
What is happening?
What else is happening? What is happening to me? Midnight moves to mid-August. Space gray model, still the fastest option available if you want to get your MacBook Air.
It's because
M2.
space gray is the most boring of colors.
The most
We've already
horrible.
established this.
Yes. That's for boring people. Midnight is obviously the only
It's a
option.
good substrate for stickers. As a P2 dish in which we can grow a farm of stickers, it's great.
I am a little baffled, and I'm definitely disappointed by those color selections on the MacBook Air. I know you can't get your heart set on rumors. There were rumors that they were going to do the iMac colors on the MacBook Air. I would have loved to have seen that. But it's such a weird smattering of colors, right? Because it's silver and space gray. It's the old standards. And then they bring in the starlight and the midnight. But it's like, yes, as Andy said earlier, it's kind of different shades of gray. And I am a little surprised that they didn't choose one kind of popping color, because the one color that is there for real is midnight. But unless you're literally, because at WWDC I got to hold one, unless you're literally holding it so that the reflection bounces off the metal into your eyeballs, it just is black. Only when you can bounce it with just the right light does it look blue at all. And I wish they had done something a little brighter, but maybe next time. Maybe the supply
It's a
chain.
subtle
Let's
blue.
blame
It's
let's
subtle.
blame the supply chain
Yeah.
for it.
Also, getting a color right is amazingly hard. It's not just like picking a color out of a color palette offered by the manufacturer. Getting it so that can be formulated and reproduced exactly point as you're making. That said, I mean, Apple does have the resources, and I'm with you, Jason. One of the most exciting things about rumors about the MacBook Air was going to be, if you want a purple one, just like the old iMac, if you want a purple one, get a purple one. You want a candy red one, get a candy red one. So I'm really hoping that they at least, when they're in the middle of the cycle, they're not ready to update the hardware yet, but they're ready to get people who were on the fence to actually remember that they want to buy a MacBook Air.
Right.
And just like with the
now
phone,
there's a
they
red
suddenly-
one.
Exactly. There's a whole commercial about
I mean,
it. I hope they expand the palette.
To be fair to Apple, the iMac and the MacBook Air are different. The iMac sits in a room, so you choose the color and you put it in a room and it is there. Whereas a laptop, you're taken from place to place. So I can see an argument that maybe one, you have to get that color to work in wherever you take it, and maybe it stands out in ways you don't want. And also, you take your laptop in maybe professional contexts. Maybe you don't want to stand out. It has been a very long time since Apple made a colorful laptop. They made that original iBook, and they basically after that said, no, we're going to go to boring. And maybe there is an argument to be made that people don't, as much as people love the colorful iMac and might like it in their home, when it's their laptop that they're toting from place to place, maybe they don't want a bright blue laptop.
Here's my theory. People do like bright blue, but they also like bright red. They also like bright green, and you're splitting those sales up into many SKUs, and Apple does not like multiple SKUs.
Except the iMac. I mean, that's my counter argument is that they have 7 colors of,
that's a good point.
6 colors of iMac and then silver.
Silver's not a color.
Not a color.
I would buy a product red M2 MacBook Air today. If
Right.
they had a product red, I would absolutely buy it.
But also, to be fair, it's not as though in the Windows side of things we have a lot of adventure there either. So
Yeah.
we just hope for more from Apple.
I do wonder if there's some laptop buying psychology that's fundamentally. I say I like bright colors, but when I put it in my bag and I'm going to a job interview, I actually don't want my bright purple laptop because everybody's
that's
going
a
to
good
go,
point.
oh, what's with the purple laptop?
Well, and also, what is the percentage of laptop sales that are business versus personal.
Right.
And it may be that, I'm sure a business isn't going to want a color.
They're not going to. I mean, they're not going to make you buy a color. They'll make you do space gray. But I think there is the question of like if nobody wants to buy a color because they just want to be more
Then you're
conservative when
stuck
they're out in the world.
With a bunch of somewhere
And just
in Africa, there's a bunch of children with purple MacBooks. And,
Maybe.
Just buy a shell if you want like bizarre colors. So
yeah, you
Yeah,
can. That's what
true.
I do, right? Or
That's
get a
true.
skin or whatever. By the way, we counted. Actually, 9 to 5 Mac counted. Apple TV Plus 52 nominations. That's
Nice.
a lot. They had 34 nominations last year. So the Emmy committee obviously agrees Apple is kind of on a roll. The morning show did not get nominated. Thank you. Oh, thank you. The worst show.
The
on
actors
TV.
did.
The actors
for
did,
that,
but not
for best drama.
Yeah. By the way, apparently I didn't know this. There's a commercials category, and Apple got nominated for 2 commercials. Their iPhone 13 Pro Detectives one. That's a great commercial.
Oh, right, with the focus
where
hub.
they rack zoom focus on the detective. What if I were the leading character? What if I did the murder? That was a great one.
why am I blurred? Well, because you're just a background character.
That is
Well,
one of the best commercials of the year. Absolutely. And then I don't remember this. Everyone but John Hamm.
Oh yeah, that's the one where John Hamm is watching TV and seeing promos for Apple TV and is very upset
He's
that
not in it.
he's not in any of them.
A little self-referential. Severance got a lot of nominations, which is great, as did Ted Lasso. Didn't see a lot of nominations for Foundation. In fact, as far as I can tell, the only nomination for Foundation was for Outstanding Main Title Design.
They had a special effects
Oh, they got special
nomination
effects
too, but
Okay.
that's about it.
Yeah. Foundation, not one of Apple's best. Finally, before we get to our picks, did they tell you that we do picks of the week every week?
I already knew.
You knew that? Okay.
I've been on before. I know how it works.
Just teasing.
What up, pro?
I should have made this my pick of the week. If you play Oregon Trail on Apple Arcade, and who doesn't, you will like knowing that the new Oregon Trail Apple Watch app will track your steps for in-game progress. So they'll actually tell you how close to Oregon you are. If you wanted to visit your ducks, you could walk there. I think it's kind of a great idea. Include steps.
The health app can also tell you how close you are to having dysentery.
You have died of dysentery. So let me play this trailer for the Oregon Trail. Here you are walking. No oxen, no problem. Transform your daily walks into, and wheelchair pushes and runs, into a westward journey. So you can find out how close you are to 2,000 miles all the way across the country. I think that's great. You've arrived at Fort Kearney. I love that idea.
This was like an Apple Basic app, like in the 1978,
Right, on your Apple II.
Who would have guessed that it's still around like 40 years later? That's
amazing.
cultural heritage, man.
Yeah, it's really awesome. It actually makes. I am too old to have played Oregon Trail in grade school. You played.
I think I just missed it.
Yeah.
me
Our
too.
kids probably did. But in fact, I remember when Abby went to kindergarten, there were still some Apple IIs in the classroom. I thought, well,
They lasted a lot longer than you might
nice.
think.
So she probably played Oregon Trail. All right, we're going to take a break and then come back with your picks of the week. Again, Alex had to take off, sorry, unexpectedly. The president called, and you know how that is. When the phone goes off, you've got to run.
The bat phone was engaged.
Sir, the reason why you're seeing yourself and not your grandkids is you've got the selfie camera on. Just look for the button that, sir. Give me the phone, sir. Hang on.
I think you're right. Oh, my God. You're muted. This episode of MacBreak Weekly brought to you by ExpressVPN. Okay, sure, you can use lockdown mode. But, you know, as you go online and do those Google searches or visit those websites, even in lockdown mode, they know exactly who you are. And your phone carrier knows exactly where you're going. In fact, Verizon has even admitted to it. They say it's so we can better understand your interests. We want to know what you buy at the grocery store so we can better understand your interests. Really, all they do really is sell those interests to advertisers. Stuff like the sites you visited, things you've been up to online. Maybe you want a little more privacy than that. maybe you want to use ExpressVPN. It's the only VPN I use, partly because I could put it everywhere. Smart TVs, phones, computers, even on some routers. And ExpressVPN is so fast, if you put it on the router to protect your whole household, nobody's going to complain. You can watch HD video because they invest in the network. And I look for that in a VPN provider. There's some things I really look for. One is they do not log. And this is a very important one because, after all, if you're trying to avoid being spied on and then your VPN provider spies on you, you haven't done anything to improve your privacy. Not only does ExpressVPN not log, they go to extra lengths not to log. In fact, there was a great article in Bleeping Computer a couple of months ago about how ExpressVPN protects your privacy. They created something called Trusted Server, an open source VPN server. It runs in RAM. Its sandbox, cannot write to disk, so they couldn't log if they wanted to. Furthermore, they run on a specially constructed Debian installation that automatically refreshes itself every day, wipes the whole drive. So there are zero logs of what you've been doing online. So not only do you not have to worry about your ISP spying on you, you don't have to worry about a government agency. And in some countries, they don't knock. They just come and they take the servers. There's nothing on it. ExpressVPN protects your privacy, allows you to watch videos all over the world without geographic restriction. And they invest in their network in a couple of ways that are so important. I mentioned bandwidth. That's really important. But they also rotate their IP addresses. That's super important if you want to eliminate geographic restrictions. Because people don't know, Google doesn't know, no one knows that, I know that's an ExpressVPN IP address. No, they don't. They're constantly updating their IP addresses. And whether you're an iPhone, Android, tablet user, whatever, ExpressVPN works on all of your devices. And somebody asked me this, and I'm glad to let you know, one subscription can be used on 5 devices at the same time. So no problem. Get the whole family using ExpressVPN. ExpressVPN is the only way to protect yourself online. The only VPN I use and recommend. When your phone carrier tracks you, that's a gross invasion of privacy. You can keep letting them cash in on you, or you can visit expressvpn.com/MacBreak to get the same VPN I use. Take back your online privacy today. If you use our link, you'll get 3 months free with a 1-year package. That's the best deal. A little bit less than $7 a month. I think that's a really fair price to pay. You want to pay for a VPN because you want to be the customer, not the product, right? expressvpn.com/MacBreak. They are committed to your privacy and security. expressvpn.com/MacBreak. We thank them so much for their support of MacBreak Weekly. And, of course, if you want to support us, very important, use those addresses that the advertisers give you so that they know you saw it here. Oh, I got a pick of the week. Prime Day AirTags 4-pack, $85. Yeah, not really, no.
Oh. You can stock all kinds of
Such
people
a deal.
with that money.
Such a deal. I bought 4 when they came out. $25 each, $100 for 4. I keep
I've
one in
yet
my
to lose
bag when I
one.
travel. Yeah, don't lose it. Yeah, in case you lose one. I gave one to my Lisa. I kept 2. I gave one to Lisa and then one to Michael, and they put it in their. I think they put it in their bags, which is good. I wish it was thin enough to put in my wallet, but that's life. Andy, your pick of the week this week.
Just one quick piggyback on what you just said. I mean, it is, quote, Prime Week, unquote, that a lot of other companies are getting in the back of. I don't like to promote rampant consumerism just because of marketing, but I do have that kind of bookmark in my mind because for the past 3 months, every time I was looking at like a phone charger, I was about to put my laptop back, say, gee, I kind of want to replace that with a GAN charger, or the times where it's like, oh, geez, I really need a 512 gig like a memory stick or USB stick. That's when you wait because Anchor usually has like a store-wide sort of sale. SanDisk will have like a store-wide sale. So that's what I kind of like to recommend for that kind of stuff. But my actual pick of the week, we were talking about James Webb Telescope, which is a good time as any to remind people how the great work that Phil Plait, the astronomer, does in astronomy communication and talking about every scientific advance, everything that's interesting, everything that's relatable.
It's so funny.
That aren't relatable,
You should mention this because I was going to email Phil to get him on our coverage this morning. Then I didn't realize that NASA had plenty of astronomers to talk about it. But
Yeah.
Phil is the bad astronomer,
astronomer.
who is the best astronomer. I love him.
Yeah, I'm sure he regrets. I've known him for like 15 years too. Because you remember he started off as a blog of just like looking at astronomy in movies and TV shows and saying, well, that's the bad depictions of astronomy. But now he's like known as the bad astronomer. But it does mean that if
he's the best astronomer.
No, he is. He's amazing.
He is.
Yeah.
Very funny.
No, he is great. Again, there are people who are scientists who share their enthusiasm, and they're people who don't have a lot of experience who can talk to you at your own level. Phil is one of those few scientists that he's got all he can understand all the papers. He understands not just the pretty pictures of these pictures, but also here's what it means, here's what it opens up, here's what you're actually looking at. So just Google bad astronomy. It will show you a blog on the Sci-Fi Channel. It will show you an Instagram. It will show you a Twitter. Also, he has adorable horses and little goats on his farm.
Yeah.
Well, you both know Phil.
Oh yeah. I mean, I've only emailed him a couple of times, but I've been a fan for more than a decade.
He's great. He does have a blog post on sci-fi.com on the first images from the James Webb Space Telescope. And, it's really, really exciting. And his enthusiasm, of course, is completely communicable. I have just been informed this is your 20th appearance on MacBreak Weekly.
Oh,
who knew? I
new.
thought you were the new guy.
Well, I made a lot of appearances back in the day, and then I started getting used on Twit a lot.
We love you so much. We put you on the Big Boy Show.
And it was also easier to get up here on the weekend. I think maybe it was part of it too.
Yeah.
But 20 times on MacBreak Weekly. Who knew?
I didn't. Jason, I am so thrilled to have you. I've wanted to get you on this show forever and ever and ever.
Well, I'm happy to
and
oblige.
There aren't many people who could fill Rene Ritchie's shoes, so we're so thrilled to have you on a regular basis. Jason will be in studio whenever he can, but often on Zoom, just like everybody else. That's fine.
I mean, don't you love being surrounded by TVs?
I don't mind it at all. In fact, I really don't want to have anybody around me.
All right, well, I'm out of here.
I like to be alone. No, what's your before you do that? Your pick of the week?
Well, since I'm new here, I get to replay some of my favorites and tell people about them who may not know about them. In this case, it is an app called SwiftBar, which is free. There's another app that's very much like it called XBar. These are apps that live in your menu bar. That's what they do. And what do they show? Anything you want.
That's why it's such a scant web page.
Well, you got to click to go through to
SwiftBar.app.
It's like
you know what?
It's like a GitHub page.
You've got a great review at sixcolors.com. That's probably where you should go.
You can see it there, and there's a screenshot down there. The idea here is you can take anything that runs a script. It can be an Apple script. It could be a shell script. It could be a JavaScript. It could be a Perl script. It could be a Python script. It doesn't matter. You run what SwiftBar does is it runs the script. You put how often you want it to run in the file name, and it puts the results in the menu bar. And you can have as many of these plugins as you want. So it can do something like be a shell script that does an Apple script request to the music app to query it about what song is playing and what the show art is, or the album art.
So if you really want a giant menu bar,
I don't, but I do use the temperature. So I've got a weather station at home.
I love that,
and I am querying my weather station every 5 minutes or so, and it puts the current temperature in my backyard in there. But literally, if you are a nerd and have the ability to do scripting of any kind, as long as you can get that script to output text. And SwiftBar has a very specific format of like what goes in the menu bar and what goes in the menu item when you click on it. It's got a plugin system, so you can download plugins that other people have written. You can make your own, and then they just hang out in the menu bar. So yeah, I've got one that shows the air quality and one that shows the temperature. And if you click on it, I actually have one that shows me the forecast. I'm actually querying Apple's WeatherKit API, their web API that they just opened up, and writing a little, generating a little chart and displaying that when you click on the menu bar item. So basically, if you ever wanted to have some ambient data on your Mac menu bar and you are capable of writing a script in some language, you can use SwiftBar to put it in your menu bar. And I love it. This is one of my favorite things, is just little basic ambient data hanging out in my Mac menu bar.
And it looks like there's some plugins.
There's lots
as
of
well.
them. SwiftBar and XBar both have a whole bunch of community-generated plugins. I think this started as an app called BitBar, which sort of morphed into XBar, and SwiftBar was a replacement for BitBar. So, the guy who wrote it was wanting to track like Bitcoin prices, but the fact is,
funny.
he very, very quickly realized it could literally do anything. And it's got support for SF symbols, Apple's symbol library, so you can very easily just have your script write out the name of an SF symbol, and it puts the symbol in your menu bar. So you can make them look pretty great pretty quickly. And there's other terminology if you want color or you want it to be a hyperlink so that when you pull down on the menu and select something, where does it take you? And the script can generate all of that.
SwiftBar.app. The only thing I hate about the new MacBooks is the notch, which takes a big chunk out of my menu bar. I actually have to use Bartender so that I can use my menu bar because I'll add stuff and it just disappears under the notch. So I presume this works with Bartender.
It does. Works great with Bartender.
Perfect.
You can do, in fact, I use Bartender with it. So some of my ambient things are always visible and others are only visible when I mouse up to see them.
Even better.
Which works
Well, I
great.
can't
But
wait to
it's
play
like
with this.
the best part is that it's so simple. It's dead simple. In the end, the output is just some text in a format that SwiftBar specifies. And what that means is whatever you're comfortable with. I had one that fired off an Apple script, right? Like it could be, doesn't have to be one. So many of these tools that we get, so many different macro languages and third-party apps, they're like, you have to use JavaScript or you have to use whatever we determine. And SwiftBar doesn't care. It really doesn't care. As long as you can execute it, it'll work.
Yeah. What do you code your SwiftBar plugins in?
These days, I'm mostly using Python. I taught myself Python
good.
last year, and I really like it.
Yeah.
Now I'm realizing that there are a lot of apps that want JavaScript, and I'm terrible at JavaScript.
Oh, don't learn JavaScript.
But I know enough to be dangerous. But Python is what I
that's a
prefer
great
these days.
language.
It used to be AppleScript. I started. It was all like AppleScript and shell scripts.
OSA,
But now it's mostly Python.
Jason Snell, we got a guy here in the seat. I'm really happy. It's really great to have you, Jason. It's
great to be here.
Sixcolors.com. He will put his podcasts there or relay.fm.
Work
He does
on that
podcasts
API
there. Incomparable.com. And we're going to, of course, Jason's always had a page on the Twit People page, but we'll make sure that we add all the podcasts there if they're not already there because... Yeah, I'll just plug a different one every week. In about 6 months, we'll get to the end of the line.
Maybe.
Yeah.
If I haven't started new ones by then.
GBH, the 3 letters you need to know if you want to hear Ihnatko. When?
Next Friday at 12:50 usual time p.m. as I'm going to be back at the Boston Public Library studios, and there's a coffee shop. They got sandwiches. You have to pay for the coffee and the sandwiches and the cookies, but sit down, have a great time, enjoy the Boston Public Library. Check out also they also keep the live streams both on WGBHnews.org, but also on their YouTube channel. Last week's on July 8th had a great conversation with WGBH's arts editor about AI that generates art. That was like, but no, let's not go to the mayor. I know we have to interview him, but let's keep talking. This was a great conversation. So yeah, we have a lot of fun there.
Awesome. Thank you for being here. It's somebody who says every week, ask Andy about his blog.
I now have a target date. It is now actually up and working, and now we're doing that as Jason might be able to appreciate. Now it's like, but I want people who want to give me money to give me money. How do I wire that up? And I'm getting, but it's that the solution has been selected. Now someone is helping me out with that, and we're wiring it up. So I was hoping to have it up and running in time for WWDC, but also telling myself that it has to be ready to go. I don't want to be one of those things where, don't try to do this yet. Oh, sorry, you shouldn't have clicked on that. But yeah, I want to make one announcement, and then you will see like all the content I've been making for it for a long time.
Very
when it was
nice.
just in beta mode. I will be. You and Jason, of course, are going to be on the beta list once I can like show it to people who can say, that term is not really relevant anymore now that COBOL is no longer the predominant scripting language. You might want to take that out of the masthead. But
IHN. I have no idea how to spell Ihnatko, but you do now. IHNATKO.com. Steadily slouching toward Bethlehem. Is that the title or just a
It's a placeholder.
Just a placeholder.
No, but the fun thing is that the placeholder that I had would turn out to be the real name because it's kind of snappy. Great, let's do that.
SSTB. I thank you, Jason, for not only being on the show today, but you participated in our Discord, which is wonderful. Thank you.
Love it.
A lot of back and forth in the Discord. Now, the Discord is one of the ways you can chat with us. We have an IRC as well, irc.twit.tv, which Jason was... Did you get in there?
Yeah, I did.
Because he was looking for an iPad app. What did you end up...
I ended up... Well, I already had been using Colloquy back in the day, so I just
Colloquy.
got Colloquy back.
Yeah. You can also use the website, irc.twit.tv, and that works fine as well. If you'd like to be in the Discord, and I'd like to invite you to do that, very simple. You just have to join Club Twit. Now, it does cost you money, $7 a month, but what do you get for that? A lot. Ad-free versions of all of our shows, access to the Discord, which is not just a place to chat about the shows during the shows, but really conversations about everything from coding to camping to travel to sport, to hardware, IoT, sci-fi. Stacy's Book Club is in there. We have the Untitled Linux Show in there. And we use it to launch new shows. This Week in Space launched in our Club Twit Discord. We've got another one coming up with one of our favorite hosts. And you also get the Twit Plus feed, which has material that wasn't in these shows, but what would have been on the cutting room floor, but is now part of the Twit Plus feed. All of that at twit.tv/clubtwit. There's monthly, there's annual, there's corporate memberships, and it's pretty important to us at this point. It really really helps us develop new programming. We have a pretty lofty goal for new programming. We'd like to do it, but of course, when a show's brand new, there's no advertising for it. So you and your support in the club really make that possible. Thank you. Thank you very much. Actually, I think Alex is our next event. Yeah, Thursday, 9 a.m. Ask Me Anything with Mr. Lindsay. And then July 28th, the members fireside chat. Aunt Pruitt is the community manager in Club Twit. I will, twit.tv/clubtwit. Thank you in advance. I will not be here next week. Micah Sargent is going to host Jason, Andy, and Alex because we're doing our Twit cruise next week. I was been saying 103, but I think there's 120 people. It's a big group. You used to do the Geek Cruises.
Absolutely.
Those are fun.
Those were a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Had some good times with Andy.
Andy's done those too.
On the boat,
yeah.
On the Mac Mania, yeah.
So maybe we're bringing back Geek Cruises in some form or fashion.
Nice.
The Twit Cruises. We're going up to Alaska. Paul Thurrott and his wife, Lisa, and I. The Alaska cruise leaves Saturday. We'll be going up to Seattle on Thursday and then taking off on Saturday. So I'm going to miss the whole weekend and the next week, and I'll be back on the 24th. So I'm only going to miss one MacBreak Weekly. Thanks in advance, Micah, for doing that. You'll be able to watch Tuesday, in fact, every Tuesday, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, 1800 UTC. The live stream, audio or video, is at twit.tv/live. If you're watching live, as I said, chat at irc.twit.tv or in the Club Twit Discord. Yes, we're going to get a new hero image there. We have to use the magic eraser and erase Renee Ritchie. We could do it. I think we could do it. We have a way.
Well, the great thing is, like with iOS 16, we can just drag Jason off of like one picture and just
put him right on top. Have the Jason outline. There is also at that website there are copies of the show with the ads in, of course, but they're free at twit.tv/mbw. There's also a YouTube channel dedicated to MacBreak Weekly. And the easiest way to get the show, like any podcast, subscribe in your favorite podcast player. Do me a favor, if you do subscribe, leave a 5-star review. Let the world know about MacBreak Weekly, now in its 17th year of macking and breaking. That's it for us. Now get back to work, because break time is over. Bye-bye.
Is that an iPhone in your hand? Wait a second. Is that an Apple Watch on your wrist? And do I see an iPad sitting there on the table? Oh my goodness. You are the perfect person to be watching iOS Today, the show where Rosemary Orchard and I, Micah Sargent, talk all things iOS, tvOS, watchOS, HomePod OS. It's all the OSs that Apple has on offer, and we show you how to make the most of those gadgets. Just head to twit.tv/iOS to check it out.